Something unexpected is unfolding around the Indiana Fever, and it's raising serious questions across the WNBA. At the center of it all, Sophie Cunningham. New developments suggest a shift in her role and possibly her future, and fans are trying to understand what it really means. But what's really fueling the conversation is how this connects back to Caitlin Clark. Because now people are asking, was Cunningham ever seen as more than just protection around Clark? And if that role is changing, what comes next for her? Let's break down everything happening and why this moment might be bigger than it seems. The moment the news started circulating, it didn't take long for the conversation to take off. Because anytime a situation involves the Indiana Fever and a player like Sophie Cunningham, people pay attention immediately. But here's the key detail, because nothing was officially framed as a dramatic abandonment. There was no clear announcement, no direct statement confirming a major shift. And yet, the narrative still grew. Fast. Because in today's sports environment, perception moves faster than confirmation. A small update, a subtle change, a shift in role or expectation. And suddenly it becomes a full storyline. That's exactly what happened here. Fans began analyzing everything. Her recent appearances, her minutes, her involvement within the team structure, trying to piece together what they believed was happening behind the scenes. And once that process starts, it builds quickly, because every detail becomes part of the narrative. Every game becomes evidence. Every decision gets interpreted through the same lens. But here's where things took a major turn, because it didn't take long for one specific idea to dominate the conversation. The enforcer role, a label that started being attached to Sophie Cunningham in relation to Caitlin Clark. Now, whether that label was ever officially defined or not, doesn't really matter, because once it enters the conversation, it sticks, and it shapes how everything is viewed. Fans began asking, was she brought in to protect Clark? Was her value tied to physical presence more than skill? And if that's the case, what happens when that role is no longer needed? Those questions started driving the narrative. And once again, comparison entered the picture, because Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the center of attention, the face of a new wave of visibility in the WNBA, which means anyone connected to her becomes part of the story. And that's exactly what happened here. Cunningham's role wasn't just being evaluated on its own, it was being evaluated in relation to Clark. And that changes everything, because now her identity as a player gets filtered through that connection, through what she represents within that dynamic, rather than what she brings individually. But here's where things get more complex, because roles in professional sports aren't always fixed. They evolve, based on team needs, based on strategy, based on how the roster develops over time, and that's something fans don't always see, because most of those decisions happen internally, behind the scenes, without public explanation, which creates space for speculation. And speculation is exactly what fuels narratives like this. Meanwhile, the WNBA is in a unique moment, growing rapidly, gaining attention at a level it hasn't seen before. And with that growth comes something else: scrutiny. More eyes on every player, more analysis of every role, more debate around every decision. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. A situation where a shift, real or perceived, becomes a major talking point. But here's the key takeaway. Because while the narrative feels intense, it's not necessarily the full picture. It's one version of events, shaped by interpretation, amplified by repetition, and driven by engagement. But even with all of this, there's still more to uncover, because once reactions start building, the story only gets bigger from here. As the story continued to spread, the focus began to shift in a major way. From what changed to why it changed. And that's where everything became even more intense. Because once fans start asking why, they begin building their own answers, their own theories, their own narratives about what's really happening inside the Indiana Fever. And in this case, those theories started multiplying quickly around Sophie Cunningham. Some fans believed it was purely basketball related. A shift in rotation, a change in strategy, a different approach from the coaching staff. Because in professional sports, roles are constantly evolving. Players move in and out of lineups, responsibilities change. And what a player is asked to do one week may not be the same the next, but others saw something deeper. They connected it back to the narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark, because once that connection is made, everything gets interpreted through it. The idea that Cunningham had a specific purpose tied to Clark's presence. That her physical style, her energy, her on-court presence, all fit into a larger role within that dynamic. And if that dynamic changes, then naturally her role changes too. At least that's how the narrative was being framed. But here's the key detail, because that framing is based on interpretation, not confirmation. And that distinction matters, because in today's sports media environment, perception often moves faster than facts. A single idea can spread quickly, get repeated, and eventually become accepted as truth, even if it was never officially confirmed. Meanwhile, fans started looking for patterns. Recent games, minutes played, situations where Cunningham was or wasn't on the court, trying to find evidence that supported the narrative. And once that process begins, every detail becomes part of the story. But here's where things get even more interesting, because while fans are focused on narrative, teams are focused on something completely different. Execution, matchups, game plans. Because decisions at the professional level are rarely about just one factor. They're about what works best in a specific moment, against a specific opponent, within a specific system. And those factors aren't always visible from the outside, which creates a gap between what fans see and what teams actually consider. And that gap is where speculation grows. Meanwhile, the conversation around Cunningham started expanding beyond just basketball, into identity, into how players are perceived within a team. Was she viewed primarily as a physical presence, as an energy player, and as someone whose role was tied to a specific situation rather than a consistent position? Those questions started driving the discussion. And once again, comparison entered the picture, because anytime a narrative involves Caitlin Clark, it naturally expands. Her presence amplifies everything, because she represents a new level of attention in the WNBA, a level where every detail gets analyzed, every role gets questioned, every connection becomes part of a larger story. And that's exactly what's happening here. But here's the key point, because while the narrative is intense, it's also part of something bigger: growth. The league is growing, the audience is expanding, the level of attention is increasing, and with that growth comes more conversation, more debate, more moments like this, where everything feels amplified. But that's not necessarily a negative thing, because it means people care. It means they're invested. It means the game has reached a level where these discussions matter. However, it also creates challenges, because when narratives take over, they can sometimes overshadow reality. They can simplify complex situations into easy-to-understand stories, even if those stories don't capture the full picture. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because while fans are debating Cunningham's role, the reality is likely more nuanced, more connected to strategy than storyline. But nuance doesn't spread as fast as narrative, and that's why this conversation has grown so quickly. Meanwhile, expectations are starting to shift. Fans aren't just looking at what's happened, they're looking ahead, asking what this means moving forward. Aim for Cunningham, for the Indiana Fever, and for how roles are defined within this new era of the league. Because once a narrative reaches this level, it can't stay static. It has to evolve into something new, into the next phase. And that's exactly where this story is heading. By now, the narrative has fully taken shape. What started as a small shift has turned into a full storyline surrounding the Indiana Fever and Sophie Cunningham. And once a storyline reaches this level, it doesn't just stay the same, it evolves, it grows. It takes on new layers as more people join the conversation. Because now it's not just about what happened, it's about what it means. And that's where things become even more complex, because meaning isn't fixed. It's shaped by perspective, by how fans interpret the situation based on what they already believe. And right now, those interpretations are being heavily influenced by one factor: Caitlin Clark. Even when she's not directly involved, her presence shapes the narrative, because she represents something bigger than just performance. She represents attention, visibility, a shift in how the game is being consumed. And that means anyone connected to her becomes part of a larger story. That's exactly what's happening with Cunningham. Her role isn't just being evaluated on its own, it's being viewed in relation to Clark. And that changes everything. Because now, instead of being seen as an individual piece within the team, she's being framed as part of a dynamic, part of a system built around a central figure. And that framing creates limitations, because it simplifies a complex reality into a single idea. But here's the key issue. Because roles in professional sports are never that simple. They're fluid. They change based on matchups, strategy, and long-term planning. What a player is asked to do in one game may be completely different in the next, and that's something fans don't always see. Because most of those adjustments happen internally, behind the scenes, without explanation, which leaves room for interpretation. And interpretation is exactly what fuels narratives like this. Meanwhile, fans continue to analyze every detail, looking at minutes, looking at rotations, looking at how Cunningham is being used in different situations, trying to find patterns that confirm what they believe is happening. And once that process starts, it reinforces the narrative, because people tend to focus on information that supports their perspective. And that's how stories grow stronger over time. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because while the narrative feels dominant right now, it's not permanent. In sports, narratives are always temporary. They last only as long as they align with what's happening on the court. And once reality shifts, the narrative shifts with it. That's the cycle. And that's exactly what makes this moment so important. Because we're at the peak of the narrative phase, the point where everything is being discussed, but nothing has been fully resolved. And that's where anticipation starts to build. Because fans aren't just talking anymore. They're waiting to see what happens next. How Cunningham responds, how the team adjusts, how the situation evolves over time. Because once a narrative reaches this level, it demands a follow-up. A moment that either confirms what people believe or completely changes the story. Meanwhile, the WNBA is experiencing something important through all of this. Engagement, massive engagement, more discussions, more attention, more people invested in what's happening. And that's a sign of growth, because leagues don't reach this level of conversation unless people care, unless they're emotionally invested in the outcome. And that's exactly what's happening here. But it also comes with challenges, because when engagement is driven by narrative, it can sometimes overshadow the game itself, the actual competition, the performances that should be the focus, and that's something the league has to balance moving forward. Meanwhile, players continue competing through all of this, through the noise, through the speculation, or through the constant attention on everything they do. And that's not easy, because while fans are debating narratives, players are focused on execution, on winning games, on performing at the highest level. And that disconnect between narrative and reality is what makes situations like this so complex. But here's where everything starts to come together. Because narratives can only go so far on their own. At some point, they need results. They need outcomes. They need something real to either support them or break them. And that's where this story's heading next. At this stage, everything has reached a turning point. The narrative has spread. The debates have intensified. The comparisons have taken over the conversation. And now, it's no longer about what people think happened. It's about what happens next. Because in sports, narratives don't last forever. They get tested by performance, tested by results, tested by how players respond when the spotlight is at its brightest. And that's exactly where things are heading for the Indiana Fever and Sophie Cunningham. Because everything that's been said so far is about to be challenged by reality. Meanwhile, the comparison to Caitlin Clark continues to shape how this situation is viewed, even when it's not directly mentioned. Because once a comparison like that enters the conversation, it becomes the standard, the reference point, the lens through which everything is analyzed. And that creates pressure, real pressure, because now players aren't just being evaluated on their own performance. They're being evaluated relative to someone else, relative to expectations that may not even be fair or realistic. And that's one of the biggest challenges in modern sports narratives. But it's also where opportunity exists, because pressure doesn't just create difficulty, it creates potential for players to rise above the narrative, to redefine how they're viewed, to shift the conversation through performance. And that's exactly what this moment sets up. Meanwhile, fans are more engaged than ever, watching closely, analyzing every detail. looking for signs that confirm or challenge what they believe. Because now, every game feels significant. Every performance feels like part of a larger story. And that level of engagement, it's powerful. Because it keeps the league in the spotlight. It keeps the conversation alive. It keeps players at the center of attention. But it also raises the stakes, because when expectations rise, so does pressure. And pressure changes how everything is experienced. For players, for teams, for the league itself. But here's the key point. Because while the narrative feels dominant right now, it's not permanent. It's temporary. In sports, narratives are always temporary. They last only as long as they align with reality. And once reality shifts, the narrative shifts with it. That's the cycle, and that's exactly what makes this phase so important. Because we're at the moment where expectation meets reality, where everything that's been said is about to be tested. Meanwhile, the WNBA is also navigating this moment. Because situations like this don't just impact individual players, they impact perception of the entire league, how it manages attention, how it balances narratives, how it ensures that growth leads to stability rather than imbalance. And that's not easy, because growth brings complexity. More fans, more opinions, more conversations that extend beyond the game itself. But those conversations are also a sign of progress, because they mean the game matters. They mean people are invested. They mean the league has reached a level where every detail is being analyzed. And that's exactly where the WNBA is right now. But here's where everything connects. Because beyond the comparison, beyond the speculation, beyond the narrative itself, there's something bigger happening. Evolution. The game is evolving. The way it's consumed is evolving. The way players are perceived is evolving. And moments like this are part of that process. They're not always smooth. They're not always comfortable. But they're necessary. Because they push the game forward. They bring new attention. And they create new opportunities for growth. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. But even with all of that, there's still one more phase left. Because after expectation comes something else. Outcome. Now everything comes down to one word. Outcome. Because after all the speculation, after all the comparisons, after the narrative has dominated the conversation, there's only one thing left that truly matters. What actually happens? On the court. In real time. Because in sports, narratives don't survive without results. They either get confirmed or completely fall apart. And that's exactly where this situation involving the Indiana Fever and Sophie Cunningham is heading now. Everything that's been said is about to be tested. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham now finds herself in a unique position. Oh, a position where every move carries extra weight. Every minute on the court is being analyzed. Every performance is being interpreted as part of the larger story. And that kind of spotlight changes how everything is experienced. Because now, it's not just about playing the game, it's about responding to a narrative, responding to expectations, responding to perceptions that may not even reflect the full reality. And that's not easy, because pressure like that doesn't come from one place. It comes from everywhere. Fans, media, social platforms, all reacting in real time, all forming opinions based on every moment. And that creates a unique challenge. Because performance is no longer just performance, it's interpretation. How each play is viewed, how each game fits into the bigger picture. See, and that adds a layer of complexity that most players don't have to deal with early on. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark continues to shape the environment around her, not just through her own performance, but through the attention she brings to the league. Because her presence amplifies everything. Every game gets more eyes. Every storyline gets more attention. Every player connected to her becomes part of a larger conversation. And that's exactly what's happening here. Cunningham isn't just being evaluated on her own. She's being evaluated within that larger context. And that changes how everything is perceived. But here's the key point. Because while perception is powerful, it's not permanent. It can change quickly, with one strong performance, with one moment that shifts the conversation. And that's what makes this phase so important. Because this is where narratives are either reinforced or broken. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever is also being evaluated, not just for results, but for decisions, how they manage rotations, how they define roles, how they balance short-term performance with long-term development. And that's not easy, because every decision is now being viewed through a public lens, analyzed, questioned, debated. And that level of scrutiny is something that comes with growth. More attention means more evaluation, more conversation around every move. But it also creates opportunity. Opportunity for the team to define its identity, to show how it operates under pressure, to demonstrate that decisions are based on strategy, not narrative. Meanwhile, fans are fully engaged, not just watching games, but tracking the story, looking for confirmation, looking for moments that either support or challenge what they believe. And that's what makes this phase so intense. Because now, every outcome feels meaningful. Every performance feels like a response. Every game feels like part of something bigger. But here's where everything connects. Because beyond the narrative, beyond the pressure, beyond the expectations, there's one constant: the game itself. Because no matter how complex the situation becomes, the fundamentals don't change. Execution, effort, consistency. Those are the things that ultimately define success. Not headlines, not speculation, not comparisons. And that's what this moment will come down to. Meanwhile, the WNBA continues to grow through moments like this. Because attention, even when it's intense, drives engagement. It brings new fans into the conversation. It creates investment in what happens next. And that's a sign of progress. But it also raises expectations for players, for teams, for the league itself. And meeting those expectations is the challenge moving forward. But even with all of that, there's still one final piece left. Because after outcome comes something even bigger. Meaning, at the end of everything, after the speculation, after the comparisons, after the narrative took over the conversation, we're left with one final question. What did this moment actually mean? Because what started as a discussion about Sophie Cunningham and her role with the Indiana Fever has turned into something much bigger. A reflection of where the WNBA is right now. A league in transition, a league growing faster than ever before, and a league learning how to handle the pressure that comes with that growth. Because moments like this don't just happen randomly, they're a result of change. Change in attention, change in audience, change in how the game is consumed. And at the center of that change is Caitlin Clark, not just as a player, but as a symbol of this new era. An era where visibility is higher, where every detail is analyzed, where every role becomes part of a larger conversation. And that's what connects everything, because Cunningham's situation isn't just about her. It's about what happens when a league reaches this level of attention, where even small shifts feel significant, where every decision gets amplified, where narratives spread faster than ever before. But here's the key truth. Because while the narrative feels powerful, it's not permanent. It's just one moment in a much larger story, a story that continues to evolve. With every game, with every performance, with every new development that shifts the conversation. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham continues moving forward through all of this, competing, performing, navigating a level of attention that adds pressure to every moment. And that's not easy, but it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to redefine how she's viewed, to show that her value goes beyond any single narrative, to prove that roles don't define players, players define roles. At the same time, the Indiana Fever continues to evolve as a team, adjusting, adapting, trying to find the right balance within a rapidly changing environment. Because building a successful team isn't just about talent, it's about fit, chemistry, timing. And those factors take time to develop. They don't always align perfectly right away. And when they don't, it creates moments like this. Moments where everything is questioned, everything is analyzed, everything becomes part of the conversation. Meanwhile, the WNBA continues to grow through all of this, reaching new audiences, creating new storylines, building a level of engagement that pushes the game forward. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because it's not just about what's happening now. It's about what it leads to, how the league evolves, how players are viewed moving forward, how narratives are shaped in this new era. But here's the final takeaway. Because when everything settles, when the debates slow down, when the headlines move on, this moment will be remembered for one thing: impact. The impact it had on the conversation, the impact it had on how players are perceived, the impact it had on how the league handles attention moving forward. Because moments like this don't disappear. They leave a mark. They shape perception. They influence what comes next. And that's exactly what this has done. It has pushed the WNBA into a new level of visibility, a new level of discussion, a new phase where everything matters more. And that's a powerful place to be, because with attention comes opportunity. Opportunity for players to grow, opportunity for teams to evolve, opportunity for the league to build something even bigger. But only if that attention is handled the right way. And that's where everything comes together, right here, at the intersection of pressure, opportunity, and change. And if this moment is any indication, the next chapter won't just continue the story, it will redefine it completely. So, what do you think about this situation? Is Sophie Cunningham being misunderstood in her role? Or is this just the reality of how teams adjust in a fast-changing WNBA environment? And how much does Caitlin Clark's presence influence how players around her are viewed? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because this conversation is only getting bigger. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest stories in basketball. We're covering everything, from behind-the-scenes decisions to player roles and the truth behind the headlines. And share this video with your friends, and let's see who really understands what's happening beyond the surface. Because in today's game, it's not just about performance, it's about perception. Hashtag Sophie Cunningham, hashtag Caitlin Clark, hashtag Indiana Fever, hashtag WNBA, hashtag basketball debate, hashtag WNBA, news hashtag women in sports, hashtag sports drama, hashtag basketball talk, hashtag viral sports at WNBA, at Indiana Fever, at ESPN, at Bleacher Report, at Sports Center.